الله. بسم الله. Okay, guys, Bismillah, salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. As I promised, I'm gonna make a recording and upload it to the Blackboard for the three sections about how to put the dimensions. And I also added up some other parts, the types of the lines that we will use, inshallah, during this semester. I can define, guys, the dimension of when you draw anything without putting the dimension does not make any sense, because finally by the end your drawing is representing any mechanical or civil or any object that need to be manufactured, and the only way to manufacture it is to have the dimensions or the scale or whatever related to the identity or definition of the, 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 the characteristic of that object. One of the most important characteristics of any object is the dimensions itself. How long is it? How width? How deep is it? So we need the height, we need the depth, we need all of this. So as you can see here, guys, it says dimension adds information that specifies the following: the size of the object. There is no way to know size of the object without having the dimensions. Also, if you have features like, for example, if you have an object like this, a base block, for example, and we decide to add a hole at certain location of that object. The only way to locate to know the location of the hole is by adding dimension. You put the distance from here to there, and then you then put another distance from here to there, such that you will be able to draw two lines perpendicular. They will intersect at the location of the center of of your hole. It is also used for characteristics of features like the depth or diameter of hole. Yani if I need to know the diameter of the hole, if this hole is not through hole, I have to tell you, writing down the depth, or telling you that this hole is not a through hole and it will stop somewhere. All of this will be done by adding the dimensions. Sometimes the dimensions are used also as a communication method between the designer and the technician, who will or manufacture the technician who will start manufacturing the object. Okay, and we add some tolerances considering the status of the machine or the manufacturing of the machine, and this issue is well known for this production engineering people. Okay. Now it's time to speak about the dimensions. First of all, before I speak about the dimension, we have to get acquainted with the terminologies. Yani, for example, that line which extends from the corner from that corner and goes all the way up, this the line is called the extension line. And you should have, for each drawing, you should have two extension line, one on the left, one on the right, or one on the top and one on the bottom. Okay. As you can see, guys, this extension line is drawn with a thinner line than the visible lines of your drawing. Okay. The other thing that you should leave that gap, which is between 2 millimeter up to 4 millimeter. And the other thing that the extension line does not stop at what's called the dimension line. It does not stop at the dimension line. No, it should be extended a little bit beyond that one. And as you can see, guys, this distance is almost half centimeter. Okay. Now this line is called the dimension line itself, and it is distinguished from the other lines by adding up the arrowhead. You have arrowhead here and the arrowhead there, and this means refer that the width or whatever in between these two extension line measures 3 centimeter, 3 meter, whatever, based on the dimension or units that you are using. Okay. Notice also that when I describe trying to put information about my circle, I put the arrowhead at exactly as the circumference of the circle, and I extended the line until I get out of my figure, or I can put it somewhere inside if it's available, and then a little small horizontal line, and this line called the leader line. And beside the leader line, I'm going to write down if the radius is 1 millimeter or even the diameter. How can we distinguish between the diameter and the radius? For the radius, usually we use R capital or R small. But for the diameter, we are using that symbol, which is phi symbol. Okay. there are some situations, guys, where it's difficult to put everything inside the extension line. And for example, when I put the dimension for that thickness, notice that there is only the text inside and the arrowheads are from outside. And this makes sense when your distance is very narrow and there is no way to put the dimension from inside. The other thing that you have to notice, guys, here in this picture, that there is no repetition. Yani, for example, when I put the height of that object, the height of that object in the left and the right side view, I put 2, so there is no need to repeat it again on the left side and again write down 2. This does not make sense and the waste of time. The other thing, guys, that you have to notice is the consistency between the font and the arrowhead itself. You see, guys, this is the arrowhead size and this is the dimension. In other words, it's not accepted to have an arrowhead with that big, very big size while you are writing down your text with that a regular font. It's not accepted at all. Okay, the consistency is important. The other thing that you should add the dimension, should not add the dimension in a random way. You have to be very organized and you have to beautify your drawing by putting the dimension in a certain way. And for example, here I'm trying to describe the location of the center from the left side. I put 90 first, and then at the next I put the 1.8, which describes the length of the top part of that one, and then I put 3 to describe the whole width of the object. The way you see the way we arrange it in a staircase way. Okay. In other words, it's not accepted to put the point line here and then you go and just cut the extension line and let the dimension line and the extension line intersect together just to put the next dimension, which is 0.8. It's also not accepted to put the 3 here. You see, guys, this is a very messy situation, while on the other side, when you use this ladder or staircase arrangement, is more better than just randomizing my dimensions. The other thing, guys, that you have to keen to do is not to put any dimension inside, but in some situation you are enforced to do this because there is no way to put that dimension outside. Okay, so please remember this one. Adding dimensions inside the box or inside the object is not accepted. Do your best to put your dimensions outside and you arrange it in a very beautiful way as we did here in these 2 examples. The other thing, guys, don't try to distribute the dimensions between the 3 views equally distributed if you can. And if it not equal, some cases I will not be able to make equal distribution. Why? Like this case. You see, guys, all what I need to describe is the thickness of that side view and the height. No more dimension need to be added here, so there is no way to add more dimensions here because of the simplicity of the view itself. But when it comes to the front view, you see, guys, you have a circle, you have the center of the circle location, you have the height of that center from the base, you have that height of that line side, you also have that the height of that side, you also have the width of this side, I mean the top side, and so on, guys. Okay, so it is based on the situation. Now let's have another problem. In this problem, guys, as you can see, I refer to the circle. I wrote down phi, which means I am looking, what I'm writing down in front of that phi will be the diameter, not the radius, because on the other side here is the radius, okay? And then I write down this THRU. It's not an English word, guys, but it sounds like the word through, THROUGH, which means it's penetrating. As you can see here, guys, the hole starts from that side and it goes all the way to the opposite side. How did I know this? From the header line as we learned in the class. Okay, so please follow as it says. A complete circle object is called out by a diameter. A fillet or arc is defined by its arc radius. Yani it does not make sense to come to the arc and say phi equal to, yani for example here it's not accepted to say phi equal to 1.0 because this is not a full circle. But when it comes to a full circle, the 2 scenarios are accepted. Either you write down phi or you write down r point 0.5. You got it? Okay. And again, guys, don't forget to write down your the names under the, yani leave everything for the dimensions, and after add your dimension, you can say it's okay. This is a front this is my front view or the front view of the object, and this is, as you can see, it's the left side view of the same of the same object. Okay. Same story, guys. As you can see here, it's you see this 0.45, 0.9, 1.3. All of them are very perfect. Okay, and all of them are very correct. What is not correct, guys, okay, is to let these dimensions intersect together like this case with that case. Okay, it's not accepted at all. Here, guys, there is an intersection, but this intersection is accepted because it's intersection between two extension lines. It's not intersection between one dimension line and extension line as I explained before. No, it should be, it should, between the extension lines. This is very accepted. No problem with this. خلاص. Here it says all dimensions values should be oriented parallel to the bottom of edge of the paper. For example, you see this is a horizontal, this is the bottom of my paper, drafting sheet or the monitor. So all my text should be parallel to this one. Yani don't come to point 45 and write it down this way, point 45. No, it's not accepted. What is accepted, guys, is to write down everything in a horizontal position like this case, like this case, like this case, like that case, and so on. Uh, Here is a very famous example for what's called the stock mill. And as you can see, guys, there are a lot of dimensions with something called the tolerance, which actually this tolerance consider the manufacturing method, which is not our business for this class. But look at the dimensions, the way he arranged the dimension. He started by smaller, the next bigger, some the bigger of the bigger, and so on until he ended up by having the very last dimension. Notice also that beside each number there are positive plus or minus. This plus or minus actually is the clearance in which the technician is allowed to move in between, because sometimes you will not be able at all to come up with the exact dimension. So we used to give tolerance for the manufacturers to say it's okay, you can go between this number and that number. Okay. Uh, just these two figure to show you the difference between what is good and what is bad practice. Here in the good practice, all the dimensions are outside, as you can see, guys. They are arranged in a very smooth way, ladder way. But for this one, all the dimensions are written down inside the object or inside the outer dimensions or outer border of the object, which is not active, which is not completely accepted. Okay. So be careful not to do that mistake. How to arrange the paper? This is not skip this one, guys. But the good thing about this one, it's to get acquainted about the size of the A4. This is the paper that we usually use at school. These are the distance. If let's assume that you are making a drawing on a the regular drafting sheet. I'm not saying on the drawing on the AutoCAD. AutoCAD, it's another story. You come up with these borders, and it gives you recommendation for how what is the value of C if you are using A4, what is the value of D if you are using A4, and so on. Okay, so just very quickly, you can see the variation between the sizes of the sheets, and based on this variation, your also border will change from one to another. Like for this one, all of them are tens, while when we move to the bigger size of the paper, which is A1 and A0, they become bigger. Okay. By the way, this is what we call it title block. So in that block, you are describing the name of your product. Not only this, if there is some components, you have to list down how many components and the material and so on. And finally, you put the whole name of your product. The scale, what does I mean? What do I mean by the scale? Scale, it is the ratio of linear dimensions of an element of an object shown in the drawing to the real linear dimension of the same element of the object. Let's assume, guys, that you decide to draw, I mean engineering drawing, of course, any part, any piece of furniture at your home. Do you think that you'll be able to put this piece of I mean, the full scale and write it down on the paper? Of course, no. We have to make zoom out. I mean, scaling it down. I mean, minimizing the dimension of whatever that piece of paper, that piece of furniture, you make some kind of scaling down such that you will be able to describe it on a paper. Okay, so we have two kind of scaling. There is a scaling for zooming in, which is you make your object bigger, and there is another scale which is for zooming out. You make your object bigger, smaller. I'm sorry. Okay, now it's time to tell you that once you see scale 1 to 1 means full size. If you are scaling, you are using scale x to 1, this means that you are enlarging the dimension which was originally 1, you make it double or triple with, based on the value of x. The third one, which is 1 to x, and this is if you are trying to make reduction 1 to x, if you are trying to make reduction in the scale. Okay, you scale the size of something down. Okay, now these are the visible. These are the types or basic line types that you are using generally. For the visible line, what I mean by visible is whatever you will be able to your naked vision. That's it, naked eye. This is a visible. Okay, so you use that thick and dark line. There is another continuous thin line which is used for dimensional line, for extension line, and sometimes for the reader. And I'm sure that you are familiar with all these names from the previous slides. There is also the hidden. If you have any hidden details or any hidden feature that you need to express in your drawing, better to draw that a chain or series of small dashes side by side, just as some kind of special language between us as an engineers and the technicians. And the last one, which is chain line thin, as you can see, chain thin line. This is if you compare the size of I mean the thickness of that one. Of course, this one will be thinner. Okay, and as you can see, the center line is represented by a big dash followed by a small dash, and you keep going like this as you have that chain. Okay. There is another line missing, but that line actually it's not listed here. That line, inshallah, later will explain it in details. But anyway, it's very simple. It's one big dash followed by two small dashes, one big dash followed by two small dashes, and you keep going like this. Okay. This line is used for making a virtual section. It's for sectioning. Okay, making a virtual section in your mechanical member. We use this a big dash followed by two small dashes. Okay, I think these are the definitions, and this is some of the examples that shows you how to deal with the problem. I'm gonna come to this one later, inshallah, when we speak about the sectioning line. And finally, this is example of line conventions in engineering drawing. So as you can see, guys, we can claim that any line here or there or here or there, all of them are visible. Okay, and because there is no changes at all as a result of notches or something like this. That line again, guys, let me tell you that this is a leader for that curve, and it is 8 millimeter. Okay, we also have the dimension line thin. The dimension line thin, which is that one. If I the dimension line which is thin here, you see, guys, there is another way to write down the text. Don't leave a space between two arrowheads. You just write it down on the top of that dimension line. Okay. No need to speak about this one. This was just some kind of discussion between me and the other students in the previous class. But this one is very important, guys. As long as you decide to draw a circle from the full, I mean from the side of the circle, don't do that mistake. The first mistake is to make big dash followed by small dash, big dash followed by small dash, and so on. Don't let the intersection between the dashes that you selected from the vertical center line, don't let this intersection with the other dash, which is listed horizontally, or don't let the problem grows up. And the only way here, the correct way, is to add up these two center, is to add up one center like this. And after adding up the one center, then You add up one plus sign, and after getting done with the plus sign, then you move to adding the center line for the circle. So if you can notice, guys, regardless of the size of the circle, if it's big or small, I always try to do my best to put this small crossing intersection at the center. Otherwise, you'll be in that trouble. You are not able to see the fruits of your learning, or if you are not following up what I'm saying here, then you will end up by these problems. You have that horizontal line and you have that vertical line, but when it comes to the intersection, you prefer to have that small dash with the big dash as your intersection, and then continue in the same direction. Same story for the second one. You see, guys, the exact hair line or the exact center line does not exist. Why? Because again, we have that big, uh, just one moment. We have that big line, big dash, followed by a small dash, big dash followed by a small dash. But when it comes to the horizontal, the middle dash is in the middle, which is not accepted. So the only way to get out of this, the dilemma or the headache of this issue, is to respond back to Dr. Al-Maghlani. Sorry, is the only way is to make practice on these figures. I'm sorry, guys, I mixed up the things together. So this is the only way to guarantee that you will be able to apply or to stick to the rule of uh, the new format of anyway, we'll continue inshallah. So this one is not accepted because the small dash uh, because the small dash is intersecting the big dash. Same story, the big dash is intersecting the small dash. The big dash is intersecting with another big dash. The only accepted scenario is to have our two small dashes acting or located at the center. Okay, this is the end of the session. I thank you for your patience. And this part, as I promised, I intended to do it online to save the practice time during the class. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.